Speaking of fabulous young talent, sporting excellence, Stowers-Smith made his debut for the Warriors at the, the fourth home of the Warriors, I think. We got Mount Smart, and then you got Christchurch. Then I got to big up the Hamilton Stadium, because remember that preseason game against the Storm in Hamilton, that crowd, jam-packed, bigger than any Super Rugby crowd in Hamilton this year. And the Chiefs are awesome. Like, the Chiefs are good, but they still had a bigger crowd there. So that's the third home. I think Suncorp or Gold Coast, they're kind of the fourth home, I'd say. Just a little side note there. But what was my point? Stowers-Smith. He made his debut, and we'll get into a whole lot more Warriors stuff. But to start us off here, to continue from the youngster theme of the basketball section, Stowers-Smith is the latest youngster to come through the Warriors pipeline, and they had Vaimonga, Laban, and Halasima in the team that defeated the Dolphins. Ali Leotawa is currently out injured. Eddie Iramia was 18th man. So that's just a little snapshot of the young talent at the Warriors. There's also yet to debut. Of course, we've seen Sam Healy make his debut, having joined from the Sharks for this season. And there's a whole bunch more youngsters in New South Wales Cup. This is in order of NRL debut possibilities. Eddie Iramia Toiava's next in line. I think he's going to be very useful as a versatile bench player for the Warriors. But we got Dayon Amatuanai on the wing. I think he is a chance, depending on the outside back availability, at some point this year. Helis Fatialofa, Toby Crosby, Jason Salalilo, and Makai Tafua, and Luke Hansen. All those dudes are playing in the New South Wales Cup team that is currently 9-1. Tanner Stowers-Smith, he's 36 games, I believe. 21, and he's played 43 games of New South Wales Cup. In this period, the two Andes era, which is all of Stowers-Smith's career at the Warriors, that New South Wales Cup team has been a top 4 team. And there was an interesting note, like Stowers-Smith, he played under 19s and then New South Wales Cup in 2023. So that, like, these are little glimpses of the quality of talent that the Warriors have, because Stowers-Smith, he has played a total of 1 Jersey Flegg Cup game in his life. So he went straight from under 19s to New South Wales Cup, and he's played 1 game of under 21s. And then he made his debut for the Warriors against the Dolphins. But it's a key factor. Like, yes, the New South Wales Cup team's good. They've always had pretty solid veterans. Let me see if I can remember a few. Like Ben Farr was an Aussie who came over for the first 2 years. They had Paul Roach. They've had Patarika Vaivai. James Gavey was there for a period. Maya Sands was a really solid veteran for that team. They've all left. And the team keeps winning. Which is, you still got Keilani going. You've got Tanner Boyd, Tamaira Martin, those type of characters. Moala Graham-Telfer's been a constant presence in that team for every year. But this New South Wales Cup team has been a top 4 team while producing young players for the NRL team. And Stowers-Smith is the latest. I think he's had the biggest run in New South Wales Cup because he's played 43 games, and Eddie Iramia is 20 years old, and he's already played 36 games in New South Wales Cup. Now, Stowers-Smith is also from Christchurch, and we've been big on the Christchurch Rugby League takeover for a long time. Christchurch has always had a lot of rugby league talent. Obviously, everyone knows the story of Stowers-Smith. His like great granddad or his granddad played for the Kiwis. Christchurch has always had a really good rugby league setup. It was just kind of brushed aside by the let's go with Canterbury Super Rugby team dynasty, because I don't want to upset anyone, because we actually care. And we're not very religious. So let's just settle with the Canterbury Super Rugby team. Then you had, so the way I think about it in my head, like, of course, there's always been players from Canterbury playing for the Kiwis, playing in the NRL. But there was, the way I think about it, having started covering rugby league in depth, there was the kind of Jermaine Sako Fa'amanu Brown period. And that era, to me, like maybe just under 10 years, probably more like 7 or 8 years, that era ended with Jordan Ricky leaving Canterbury to go to the Broncos. Because after that, then we get into St. Thomas of Canterbury being back-to-back National Secondary Schools champions, which is the start of a new era. But those dudes are under 17. Those dudes are schoolboys. And to be honest, Stowers-Smith didn't go to St. Thomas of Canterbury. But Stowers-Smith is the leader in terms of making his NRL debut of this new era of Canterbury Rugby League talent. It's an era where we have the Bulldogs partnership with Canterbury Rugby League, which is actually interesting because Stowers-Smith was first signed to the Bulldogs. He didn't play for the Bulldogs in any official capacity, but he was first signed to the Bulldogs before the Bulldogs announced their partnership with Canterbury Rugby League. More recently, we've had the Roosters. They've set up a South Island academy with Rolleston College. We've got young wahine from Aotearoa, like Isabella Waterman has signed a deal with the Raiders. She's moved from the Knights to the Raiders in NRLW. There's Manisha Seebeck, who's a Hornby junior who is playing in the Roosters under-19 team. All of that, like, if you didn't already know, the fact that the Bulldogs and the Roosters have a presence in Christchurch should tell you all you need to know. The fact that St. Thomas of Canterbury are back-to-back National Secondary Schools champions should tell you all you need to know. Now, what did I say a few weeks ago? The Warriors, they are under-17 Harold Matthews Cup champions back-to-back. And the MVPs in both years are from Christchurch, Lennox Tuiloma, Bishop Neil. And it's, again, we're getting into this undeniable territory when you consider Tuiloma, Neil, both from St. Thomas of Canterbury. So, like, that talent is so good that they are, two players from there, are key figures in St. Thomas of Canterbury being national champions and the Warriors being under-17 champions in the Harold Matthews Cup. This is happening below Stowers-Smith. So this is why the Stowers-Smith debut is very interesting, because he is the leader of this next wave. A next wave that has Felix Fa'atili and Richie Tupo'aile from Hornby in the Sharks system. We've got Takayo Cranwell, Xavier Lynch, Ezekiel Whangaiti in the Knight system. We got KC Newton-Whare and Josiah Ekehard Nelly in the Storm system. We got Oliver Lowry and Ezekiel Polo in the Sea Eagles system. Jackson Stewart with the Roosters. And of course, the Bulldogs have their partnership with Canterbury Rugby League. So they've got Sasaya Alatini, Bronson Rubin, Sheldon Hayward, Genesis Arkham Sherlock, and Evander Tafua. let alone the Warriors, because we know the Warriors, they have Makaia Tafua, Jason Salolilo. They are the next up players in the Warriors system behind Stowers-Smith. Rico Lamali played under-19s for the Warriors. Mayhana Paulings just joined the Titans, but he was playing SG ball for the Warriors earlier this year. Micah Sula, Isaiah Savia, Bishop Neal, Caleb Fidel, Kenny Luffy Tuanai, Cristiano Alia, Dougal Grant, Amasio Tiatia. They've been all in that under-17, under-19 mix from the Warriors, for the Warriors from Christchurch. So all of that's happening. Like that is undeniable that the rugby league talent from Christchurch and the wider Canterbury region is getting crazy. And Stowers-Smith is the leader of that. And Stowers-Smith's a very interesting leader because he fits right into this Warriors forward pack. He's a grizzly worker type of middle forward. He just goes through the work. It was a tough debut for him because he came on earlier than expected, I believe, because Vaimonga had a head HIA check. So Stowers-Smith came on for him. Stowers-Smith had some really good runs. He was doing his job. I think it was in the second half where he conceded a few penalties. And that's all right. Because once you get caught in the fatigue cycle of an NRL game, and they were playing a very tough, fast, grizzly rugby league game because that's what the Dolphins wanted to do as well. If you're in debut, it's going to be, you're going to be buggered. And those penalties, I believe, were penalties where it was just fatigue based, but he did his job. And he is more like James Fisher, Harrison, Mitchell Barnett than Leka Halasima or Dimitri Vaimonga. Laban is an athletic freak, right? Like he's tall, he's mobile, so he's got X factor. Vaimonga, footwork, power, skill. Leka Halasima is a freakazoid. Stowers-Smith is just a worker, but he's a very, very good worker. And that's a fantastic player to have as the leader of this new Christchurch Wave Canterbury Rugby League wave. And it's a useful player to have in the Warriors forward pack right now. A, because Fisher Harris is suspended. And that was, I mean, if the Warriors had lost that game with Fisher Harris in the sin bin, that would have been a bit of a bummer to do a shoulder charge with like late in the game and invite the Dolphins back into the game. But I also loved the shoulder charge. Like that was just cool. Like it wasn't cool in terms of him using a brutal act in the vicinity of someone's head. That's not cool. But the cool thing is, of this unhinged moment of brutality, the Warriors intimidate. And the middle forward trio of Fisher Harris, Mitchell Barnett, Aaron Clark it's awesome. And I think it's the best middle forward trio that I've seen for the Warriors. But they are also ridiculously intimidating. They're scary. And I've kind of broken it down. I've got this trio breakdown. One of those trios is the middle forward trio. Not only are they brutal, skillful, tough buggers, powerful, they always get the job done, but they lead the wrestling of the Warriors. And I thought about it during the 2023 season. I'm thinking about it again. I think the Warriors are one of the best wrestling teams in the NRL. And obviously that is a link to Kai Kara-France being their wrestling coach, their grappling coach. And Kai Kara-France has a fight coming up against Pantoja. So if you're a Warriors fan, You'll be bigging up in Kaikara, France for that wrestling ability. He's not a known wrestler in the UFC, but he's the wrestling coach for the Warriors, which is an interesting mix. We are now dealing with a Warriors team that is one of the best at controlling the ruck. And I think a lot of it is down to Fisher Harris. Like, that is one of Fisher Harris's skills, because he did that for the Panthers, winning multiple championships. He controlled the middle of the field. And somehow the Warriors are one of the best wrestling teams, and they concede the fewest penalties in the NRL. So they are so good at wrestling, they don't get penalized for their wrestling. What a beautiful time to be a Warriors fan. Part of that involves this vibe where calls are going the Warriors' way. So the Warriors, because everyone likes to complain about wrestling, right? Like, wrestling isn't something to be celebrated. Wrestling is a bad thing of rugby league, when instead it's just a fact of rugby league. It's a fact of rugby union. It's a fact of any contact sport, is how you control that collision, that contact. And like 10 years ago, or more, 15 years ago, when the Storm were the wrestling gurus, you're like, one day the Warriors will be one of the best wrestling teams in the NRL. No one would believe you. And they concede the fewest penalties. That starts with the middle forward trio. But you're also seeing it in the youngsters, because the youngsters have come through this Warriors system. They've had 3 summers training their wrestling. So that now they are just as equipped as any Australian team in that fundamental of rugby league. The other trios, Nickel Clockstar, Watene Zelezniak, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Watene Zelezniak wasn't really a running factor against the Dolphins. Tuivasa-Sheck had over 20 runs, 200 meters. Nickel Clockstar, excellent as always. Watene Zelezniak didn't really do the running oomph that he always does, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But if you're going Nickel Clockstar, Tuivasa-Sheck, Watene Zelezniak, that is an excellent outside back, carting the ball up. Back 3. I don't know how people think Nickel Clockstar is not that good. As I said last week, he always makes meters. He doesn't look powerful. He's incredibly powerful. But we've also got this idea that the Warriors are a good defensive team. Good defensive teams are driven by their fullback, because the fullback is telling players where to go. The fullback is counting numbers, assessing the balance of those numbers, communicating that assessment in a second. And Nickel Clockstar's doing all of that. Then you get to the goal line, Nickel Clockstar's dragging someone to put him over there. He's literally pushing them to this way, pushing them that way, and he is in the defensive line making a important defensive move. You'll see this with Clint Gutherson. Shout out to the Dragons. Good win over the Broncos. I was cheering for the Dragons because I do love the Broncos drama. Gutherson does this as well. All the good fullbacks do it. You're in the defensive line, and then when the ball moves, you tuck in behind the defensive line. But you can't tuck in behind the defensive line too early, because then they pass back or they cut back, and there's the hole in the defensive line where the fullback was. So you need to time all that perfectly. There's a lot of defensive work that Nickel Clockstar does, as well as, let me see where he's at for post-contact meters. I'm pretty sure he is first or second for Warriors post-contact meters. He's third. But he's only played the 9 games, whereas Barnett and Clark have played the 10 games. So he's doing that. He's doing all the run meters. 2 runs a set. 9 meters per run. 10 meters per run. And you've got the ruck control, but you also have the fullback leading the defensive organization. What more do you want from your fullback, you know? Yeah, he's not fast. Okay. But the team's good. Okay, he doesn't really pass like Kalen Ponga. The team's good. So he's doing his job in a good team. The other trio that I've got is the Wade Egan, Harris Tavita, Luke Metcalf trio. Wade Egan, still first for dummy half runs. That seems useful. And he was at the 10 meter per run mark against the Dolphins. He had 5 runs for 5 runs for 58 meters, 11.6 meters per run. From dummy half, 4 runs for 44 meters, 11 meters per run. You add in big minutes, best passing dummy half, making his tackles. He's a fantastic dummy half. And he leads the whole NRL for dummy half runs. And if you went into his efficiency running from dummy half, given that he averages 10 meters per dummy half run nearly every game, I reckon he probably averages 10 meters per run from dummy half this season. The best thing about the halves for me is the balance. I've talked about it for the kicking, but I also love this stat, this fact. Luke Metcalf, 7 tries, 4 try assists. Chanel Harris-Tavita, 3 tries, 8 try assists. So Metcalf has scored more tries, but he's also got a few try assists. Harris-Tavita has a few tries, but he's got more try assists. I think Metcalf must be the leading try scorer, and Harris-Tavita is probably the leading try assister. Shall we try and confirm that? I think we shall. Harris-Tavita, 8 try assists. He is first for the Warriors because Metcalf is second on 4. Tries. Luke Metcalf has the most tries. So one of your halves is your leading try scorer. The other half is your leading try assister. What more do you want? It's just good rugby league facts. Then we get into the youngsters. And it was an interesting game against the Dolphins because we had less Vaimonga. He only played 15 minutes or so. Stowers-Smith played more minutes than Vaimonga, and he played the most minutes of the bench players, which shows you how Andrew Webster views Stowers-Smith. It's not just like you're going to go debut, you're going to play 10 minutes, that's it, because we don't really want you, but we'll use you. No. You're going to make your debut, you're going to do your job, and we're going to have confidence in you to keep doing your job. Halasima has now played 3 games in a row of 80 minutes, and they are the 3 wins in a row in Australia. To me, and I've again, repeat this over and over again, these young players just doing their job, to me, is more impressive than Halasima making a line break to score a try. And if Halasima is playing 80 minutes, where he has to make 20 tackles, where all his runs are to make meters, to run into 3 dudes, he's not going to have the moments right now. But that's all good because he's learning how to play 80 minutes of tough ruthless NRL footy. It is no coincidence that Halasima's line breaks, his magical moments, his Metcalf moments, have come late in games when he's coming off the bench. But Halasima is now playing 80 minutes. I think the best Warriors team, Kurt Capewell is edge forward, Halasima comes off the bench. But in this portion of the season, we are seeing the X factor player for the Warriors just do his job. 80 minutes. Just do your job. Get through your work. Fit into the defensive structure. Fit into the attacking structure. Because there is a system there. Nickel Clockstar takes a run. Tuivasa Shek takes a run. Waitane Zelezniak takes a run. Nickel Clockstar takes another run. Aaron Clark takes a run. Halasima is going to take a run every second or third set of 6 that the Warriors have. And he needs to be comfortable doing that because he's there to play 80 minutes. And he's doing it well. But you still kind of sense, given the standard he's set for highlight plays, everyone judges him on those highlights. Where it's more impressive for me that he's just churning out 80 minutes for 3 wins in a row in Australia. The other thing I was watching was Jacob Laban. And I think a lot of people were overlooking Ali Leotawa just settling into a centre role consistently as a youngster earlier in the season. I think a lot of people are overlooking the fact that Jacob Laban is finishing games. So he's playing 24, 25, 26, 27 minutes at the end of games. Primarily on the right edge. He does seem to spend a little bit of time in the middle, and he looks good in the middle doing his job there, but most of his minutes are at the right edge position. And I find it interesting that Webster he has confidence in him to finish the game because all those games have been close. I think he missed the Cowboys game, but he's on the field in high pressure NRL moments, and Webster loves it. He's putting him there. The Dolphins' tries, though, they did come from Laban's spacing, where the gap between Laban and Metcalf was too big. So that was like a little defensive flaw that the Warriors had against the Dolphins. But fair play, one of those tries was when they were in the sin bin deficit. And that kind of thing can happen if you're conceding fast play the balls, which the Warriors do not do much of because they control the ruck. So there's always things to work on. There's things to improve. But Laban is finishing the games as an edge forward. And to me, that is very useful for a young player. Like, sure, Halasima playing 80 minutes is better. But Laban didn't start the season in the team. He has earned his selection on the bench. Injuries, suspensions fall your way. But Webster is still giving Laban that opportunity to finish games. And I think that is very impressive for a player who they're all high pedigree youngsters. They've all risen quickly through the Warriors system. Laban's had as much hype as any of the others. And again, he's just doing his job, but he's doing his job in positions that really, really matter. Because the Warriors are finishing games with Halasima on one edge and Laban on the other edge. Where the margin is 2 points, 4 points. Nail-biting finishes, stressful finishes, but the youngsters are getting that opportunity to learn how to win those games.
And they are winning those games because I think I can't remember what the exact stat is. Something like 6 of their 8 wins have been by like 1 try or less, or 8 points or less, or something like that. Like there's a lot of close games in these Warriors ones, and they're winning all of them. They're winning all of their close games because the 2 games they didn't win, they got thrashed in, right? It's Raiders and Storm. Whenever they're in these close contests, they're coming out on top. And that's with this really, I mean, the like really big license, a whole lot of faith being given to a lot of young players within that. Like, it's the Laban finishing games, Stowers-Smith on debut playing big minutes off the bench, Halasima being given the 80 minutes in a row. What else did you say? Like, Leotawa, like top 17 player, well, top 13 player from day one of the season. Vaimonga's played pretty much every game as well. Like, that's a lot. There's probably more you could list as well. I don't know. You certainly mentioned some guys as well earlier that their turns are coming up in the future that haven't quite come around yet. Like, that's a lot of trust being put in a lot of young players as well. It's not 1 or 2 guys. That's like 5 significant roles. 4 significant roles in this one game, and spread it out in terms of other players who have featured. I mean, it's similar to the stuff where we're talking about with the basketball guys, like the amount of things these guys have achieved in their careers already, and the sort of opportunities that are coming to them because of that. I mean, this is all tied into, you said this as well, this is all tied into the New South Wales Cup team being successful, winning team over the last couple seasons as well, with these same players playing big roles. Like, this is just, I don't know, this is exactly, this feels like the way that development clubs are meant to operate, right? It's like the perfect scenario. And they've got the first team with a few veterans and good, reliable players that set the tone, and they're the stars and whatever. But you've also got young players coming into a winning environment, but adding to that winning environment, not just hanging around and learning in the background, hiding in the shadows, picking up a few tips where they can, and plotting for a couple years' time when they're ready. They're coming straight in and being impactful from day one.
You can look at the ladder and see that the Warriors are second with a points difference of 5.
It is a funny thing to do to look at that ladder and see that.
It's hilarious. Lol. What is more impressive? What is more important? That the Warriors are second in the NRL with a points difference of 5, or the Warriors are 17-3 in the NRL and New South Wales Cup this season? And if we combine 3 seasons in the 2 grades, the Warriors are top 4 in 5 of those 6 seasons combined. So you can say, oh, the points differential, they suck because, like, how are they good? They don't. The points differential is 1, it's 5, it's 3, whatever. Who cares? They're 17-3 in the NRL and New South Wales Cup this season. You combine NRL and New South Wales Cup, 6 seasons total of the 2 Andes era. The Warriors as an organization are top 4 in 5 of those 6 seasons. One last thing as I drip feed NRLW information ahead of the season, there was a flurry of late signings after I published my preview. So we had to update the preview, but it does encapsulate the state of NRLW and NRLWahine as I label it. So the Bulldogs signed 3 players. Monica Tangawai. She is a former Black Fern from Wellington. And they also signed Samina Lokatui, who's a Mangere East junior, has been in their under-19 team, and Lanaya Mahakitau Monshel, who's also from their under-19 team, and they are both signed on development contracts. Lanaya Mahakitau Monshel was previously known as Lanaya Daniel, and she is the sister of Shaquila Mahakitau Monshel, who's in the top 24 for the Bulldogs. They are both the nieces of Shanice Monshel, who's also in the top 24. I think they're from Auckland. They went to Waitakere College, but they also had a stint a couple years with St. Peter's, Cambridge in the Waikato. So the Bulldogs signed 3 players from Aotearoa. The Broncos signed 2 players. There's Kerry Johnson, who is from Northland. I think she's from Kaikoui. And Azalea Maka, who is from the Bay of Plenty. They are both from rugby union. So, what am I doing here? Kerry Johnson was part of the Blues via Northland, and Maka was playing for the Chiefs team, the Manawa, this last Super Rugby season. And then, of course, we had Isabella Waterman moving from the Knights to the Raiders. Unfortunately for the Raiders, Claudia Finau has suffered a season-ending injury. Younger sister of Tatiana Finau, they're from Mount Albert. And Claudia was due to move up from a development contract to a top 24 contract and play for the Raiders this season. Before I get into my factoid, shout out to the Bulldogs. Bulldogs love Aotearoa. And the Bulldogs have the most players from Aotearoa aside from the Warriors. I think I've counted 11 of the top 24 for the Bulldogs are from Aotearoa or represent the Kiwi Ferns. The beautiful thing about the Bulldogs is that most of these players, including their development players, were recruited from New Zealand before the Bulldogs had an NRLW team. That applies to the Finau sisters because they were initially recruited by the Bulldogs and then joined the Raiders together. The Tainei sisters were recruited by the Bulldogs, and then Alexis made her debut for the Dragons before returning to the Bulldogs, and now Trinity Tainei is in the Dragons top 24, and Soraya Palepale Mangadi Jr., she has a development contract with the Dragons after being recruited by the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs are the most active NRLW team in recruiting from New Zealand. They have the most, and then it's followed by the Raiders and then the Broncos as far as numbers of NRLWahine. My factoid, though, is so that the Bulldogs signed 3 players in this little announcement roundup that I've got. The Raiders signed 1, the Broncos signed 2. There's 6 players there. 5 of the 6 played Super Rugby Aupiki or Wharapama Cup. That is the norm. That is status quo. Half, if not most, of the NRLWahine contingent for Australian teams and the Warriors played Super Rugby Aupiki, Wharapama Cup, Black Ferns Sevens, or Black Ferns. And I still believe that the NRLW growth is going to have a heavy impact on women's rugby union in Aotearoa. We've already seen it. We will continue to see it. And at some point, this will smash rugby union in the face. They're still pretending like it's not a big issue. No one's really talking about it. But as Women's Rugby League grows, as the Warriors team takes over Women's Rugby League and Union in New Zealand, as all these other NRLW teams recruit from Aotearoa, this will smash rugby union in the face.